it's going.
Okay, today we're going to take a look at doing a top end on a 787 RFI engine, and we've already put one piston on. I'm just going to kind of show you how we put a top end on a motor for those of you who've never done one before, and even if you have, maybe you could learn something. But basically, first we're going to put the pistons on. So I already got this one on. So we're going to build this one. Zoom in just a little bit here, go on my piston. Zoom in. So we pop the piston out. This is a WSM piston using RIK quality rings. So these are Japanese rings. These are really good rings. So much better than SBT rings. So first thing we'll do is going to determine which way the arrow is pointing. That goes to the exhaust, which is this way on a RFI motor. So then I'm going to put in one of the circlips. Just going to start it like this. I kind of push it in halfway like that. See that? I kind of push it in like that. And I'll take my wrist pin. Push it through here, pop it in. It seats real good. Push that out. I've already got my bearings in here. And I pre-lube them with some heavy lube. I use like an engine building lube on those. You can just use 2-cycle, is also 2-cycle oil. So let's go ahead and put that in. Remembering to put the arrow to the exhaust. So here's our second circlip. We're going to install that with a little tool I made. You won't have one of these. You'll have to use just kind of fight it in there with a pair of needle nose, which is kind of hard with this particular circlip. It's a stiff one, so I'll just kind of start it in there. Oops, let's try that again. Kind of put it in sideways. All I do is get it in there on the side, on an angle. Push that down. I see where the opening is, which is down here. So I'm going to put that to the downward position. Let's put it over here. Pop it in. It's really easy. You guys aren't going to be able to enjoy that luxury. Sorry about that. Pop on my rings. And there's writing on the rings, tiny little writing right on the end of the rings. So we're going to put that up. Always the writing goes up. And then on a 787, the ring is like half. It's like deep right here. So this cup, the cup action like goes upward. So and there's the writing's actually on the wrong side on this upper one. That's actually down, and that's not normal. The rest of the pistons or other rings you'll ever see will always be up, but because of this lip right here, that lip goes up. So we'll just pop that on. So then I use gray RTV, which is the best. It really seals up the cylinders really good, and a lot of people don't think you need to use it. You're really making a mistake there, putting an entire engine together and then ending up with a small leak. Because of that, it's really not a smart idea. And after building hundreds of engines, we just see it. This is just the way to go. So we're just going to put down a thin coat of RTV on our cylinder. Get all the spots here. This as fast as I can. Kind of get the outer edge of it. So smear that around my finger. This will also help keeping the gasket from blowing out. When you hook up city water pressure to it and stuff and you're running at full RPM, if you have a little bit of a worn cylinder on the bottom, man, you just want this stuff in there to hold that gasket in place. Just is so much. You definitely need it. So let's see here. So then I'll clean this edge right here. right where the piston is going to bump up against, because it kind of gets messy if you don't. Just kind of trim it up a little bit. Right here. And here, no problem. I'm going to go ahead and pop my gasket on. Look at my kit here. Push that down. Clean up my pistons. Get RTV on them when you're screwing with that stuff. So at this point I'm not going to put any oil on my rings. So I'll show you why in a minute. But so here's my cylinder. Now the best way to do a cylinder is after they're bored, if you get a new top end kit from me, we bore them out. This one is more of like a, normally we have these repainted and all sandblasted down, they look like new. But this particular motor is in really good condition, so we're just gonna not paint this particular engine for this customer. But if I was sending you one, it would be completely repainted and all sandblasted. And when you sandblast an engine, it makes them porous, the metal. And you would definitely want to use RTV on this side and on the base gasket. And as you can see right here, there's a little, I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a tiny bit of wear. And that's the RTV, man. It just holds that gasket in there so it won't blow out on you. It won't leak. But anyways, we'll wash these in water. We will wash these in water. Then we will blow them off with air. And then we'll use oil on them. I'll just get some two-cycle here. Which one have over here for some reason? So before I put on the cylinder, after I wash it, and I'll just kind of make that nice and wet on my cylinder. And put a little oil right on it and smear it around, get nice and lubricated like that. Then I'll go ahead and wipe it out. Scrub that out real good. And I'll kind of put the cylinder on just like this. So this particular, put some RTV around there. So I'm going to smooth that around. I just use a thin, thorough coat, basically like that. So this cylinder actually goes right here on this side. So if you turn your motor like that, see the rings are open facing you. Even if you're installing this inside a crotch, same thing. But just take my rings, position them both, I'll squeeze them, kind of start right there. Go over to this side right there. There we go. Put that down. Here's my other one up. Do the same thing here. Back to the RTV. You don't have to get that big tube of RTV. They sell little tubes up at the AutoZone, almost any auto parts store. If you can't get the gray, go with the black. but the gray's the better stuff. So ready to go on this. Again, squeeze the rings, position them over the pins. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to check this out. So anyway, sorry about that. We're going to go ahead and put in, we have like a little template we use on these. It is a manifold off of the 787. You can just use your exhaust manifold to do this, but this is going to align the jug. So we'll we'll just put a couple bolts in it. And anyway, sorry about that. I'm a busy guy. This one tight a little bit more. There we go. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to take this. No, I don't. Good grief. We've had 3 calls right in a row, all by different people. It's not lining up real good. Let me just take a peek real quick. I got it upside down. Okay, dude. Upside down, that's. This is the right way. This much still? I don't know. Oh yeah, this way. This way. Oh, my bad. My bad, guys. This thing mixes me up because it's all cut up. Keeps the jugs aligned anyways after all that. Put our jug bolts in. Okay, 13mm socket. Foot-pound torque. I'm starting a new one. This torque wrench has a gauge on it, so I like this one. Definitely want to have a torque wrench to do this. Okay, next is the O-rings. So the O-rings, we use grease on them. You're going to want to use grease. Axle grease is fine. Just kind of soak them up here. Put them on there like that. I use a rubber mallet. It sets them down in there, and they're always like a little bit big, you know. So just kind of start them in a couple spots. Inner ones. There we go. Down in the groove real well. Cylinder head. We also will redeck these if you got a bad one. Send it in with your cylinder kit to me. And one more O-ring. The grease causes the O-ring to swell a little bit, and it keeps them from leaking, because sometimes when these heads are re-sandblasted and stuff like that, they kind of will leak without a little bit of grease on them, man. They'll drip a little bit. So you want to avoid that. Throw some grease on them. This definitely protects the grooves. The grease protects the grooves from corrosion. So when you open it up in 10 years, it's still friggin' a good groove in there, and it isn't ruined. So put grease on them too. Put my head cover on. 787. These two always go back. Piece of cake. Put some red Loctite on everything. It comes in contact with the motor. It's red, not blue. So okay. Anyway, so 11mm socket. Fire them all a little bit. Twenty foot-pounds of torque. This tool I use, that zip gun there, those things are really nice. I think really gets real close to 20 foot-pounds. So they usually tighten them up a little bit more. Okay, then we're on to the rave valve. So you got to size your rave valve when you change your friggin' pistons. These are 1 over, which means we're at 40 thousandths more. So we're going to take a power valve right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it like that. I'm going to just take a half moon file and go like this, like that, and I'm going to cut it and cut it and cut it, and then I'm not going to finish this up for sake of time. But then when I get them cut, and I believe they're cut enough, I'll take it and I'll install it right here. I'll put the power valve in. I'll put my bolts in with Loctite on them. These are 10 foot-pounds. Then I will hold this down, and I will rotate I will look inside here at the rings, and I'll rotate it and make sure that the rings don't come in contact when I'm pushing down on that with the power valve. So as I'm rotating around, you can feel it right with your finger there if you're touching it. If you are, just take a little bit more, but it's about 40 thousandths. Is thicker than a matchbook, really, paper. The other thing is I would put, before I'm done with this motor, which I didn't do, go ahead and put some oil right down here now. Put a little bit of oil in here, and we're going to lube up the rings. It just makes it a lot easier to handle the rings waiting to put the oil on, but definitely don't forget, and as you can see, they're nice and lubed up. So anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions, leave them below. Go ahead and shut that off, Joe, please.